Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to give you my spiel on how and why I chose to go into van life alone and give you the tips and tricks and all the details that you need if you want to do this by yourself. I remember when I first went into it, I was completely unsure. I was scared. I had no clue of how to do a lot of anything that I now know how to do. So I'm here to give you the tips that I wish I knew when I started alone so that you can feel motivated to also go alone. Doing van life completely changed my life. It changed my perspective on so many things. So here are the things I wish I knew before I started van life alone and what I'd tell my past self. Let's go. So starting off, mindset is everything. I can't say this enough. Fear is always going to be there. It's a normal part of the experience, but confidence is built and freedom is earned through that. When you first start and you're by yourself with the very few things you've selected to keep, it gets overwhelming. You might start to fear everything that you gave away or everything you got rid of and question yourself to even be capable of handling anything that can happen alone. That's completely normal. It's gonna happen. So I encourage you to not let those things that might want to hold you back in the beginning to get the best of you, because it does get better. You do get past those things. In the beginning, you're fearing your safety and things like loneliness and the judgment that might come from being someone who is so transient. But it's worth pushing through those fears because there's so much that comes out of the adventure, the solitude, and the personal growth. One thing that I would tell myself is that there's gonna be fears, but you always get through it. And also, if there's an affirmation that you can continuously repeat to yourself in those times of stress, definitely think through those. Give yourself an opportunity to reset your ways of thinking. If this is something that you have thought about for years or months, or have a whole Pinterest board based on this type of lifestyle and adventure, but your only limiting factor is that you wanted to go into it with a partner, or you feel like you're not going to be ready for it, and you keep finding excuses and reasons not to do it, then you have to realize that if you wait until you're ready, you'll never go, because you'll never be fully ready. There will always be something in life. Opportunities pop up, and it's in those moments when you choose to take action on those opportunities that may be scary, that lead you to be the narrator of your story. Opportunities will come, and if you don't take them when they're there, you're gonna miss them. If you really want it, you have to tell yourself, you have to work with your mindset, you have to go against the fear. Changing your mindset is going to be everything in your journey. The next thing I would remind you of is that your first vehicle does not have to be perfect. I know Pinterest influencers make it seem like you need this super decked out van with all of the things and buttons, but your first van doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't even have to be a van. I know people who started their van life experiences living in cars, so they did car life for a little bit, explored that while still having their apartments or homes, and then decided the things that they needed or wanted for a comfortable setup, and then eventually bought a van, built it out while they were still living in their space. They didn't just fully do what I did and bought the van, decked it out, moved right in. It's totally normal to go with a car to start off with, or buy a van that isn't your ideal van and then slowly build it into your perfect van. When I first started, I thought about that. I was really anxious to jump into my van life experience and start exploring. I will say I was one of those people who did it all super fast, but that's typically not the experience. This was something I had thought about for years. I also spent about a year traveling with my partner in his truck. I recognized through those experiences of living out of his truck for weekends or weeks at a time what I truly needed to sustain myself in that sort of environment. Although I jumped into my van life experience quite fast, I did have those little trips of exploring what it felt like to be completely isolated in nature and what it looked like to have a routine in that setting. I recommend that, and recognize that you don't necessarily need to have everything figured out in the beginning. If you have specific dietary restrictions or things that you value, then when you're on the road and you're having to figure it out, you'll recognize like, hey, I need this, or this is missing. For me, when I first started, I was plant-based, so having a refrigerator wasn't a deal breaker because I just needed grains, fruits, veggies. Didn't necessarily have to be refrigerated, so it was pretty easy for me, and I knew that when I was building out my van, that wasn't a deal breaker. It's important to think about how you are going to be spending the budget for your vehicle, for your build, so that you're not wasting money, but you're also investing in the things that you can't live without. Like, I couldn't live without my little milk frother mixer. I use that every day for my smoothies and protein shakes. It really is just about finding what you need for your van. Your first van doesn't have to be perfect. It will come as it needs to. If you watched some of my other videos, when I first bought my van, it had some external paint damage that I was okay with because the van itself was ideal otherwise, and so then I did minor touch-ups for that, and it was fine. It was what I needed for my situation at the time, and it served me well. I love my van glow up. After I painted it myself, it looked so pretty and reflected more of my personality. But again, that didn't come until a year plus into my journey. But it did give me the opportunity to have a starting point of where I'm at and seeing how it goes for me here. And then when I decided this is my life, this is what I'm doing, I continued to add to it and build on it. And that's what's gonna happen. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect to start. You will build your perfect. So that's the tip, is just like focus on making progress over perfection. You just need a starting point and it'll take off from there. You'll see that once you start, it'll be easier to build up from there. The next thing is safety, especially as a solo traveler, especially as a solo female traveler. I think that was a concern more so for the people around me that love me, like my family and my friends, more so than it was for me, because I did have some experience living out in the wilderness in vehicles by myself, so I felt safe. I also have a great sense of intuition and ability to trust my gut, but there are just common practices that you want to have or think through before starting that solo adventure. Learning how to pick parking spots, right? It sounds so simple, but it's getting more complicated, especially in places like America where they're setting more restrictive measures on where you can and can't park overnight. Making sure that you have a comfortable, safe place where you're not having to deal with people coming to disturb you at night is really important. Also, being stealthy and finding routines around it. On the topic of more restrictions coming to that lifestyle, it's important, especially for your safety, if you're alone, to not draw attention to the fact that you're alone. I like to believe that I have privacy in my space. My windows aren't tinted in my van, so I have shades that cover all of my front windows. And then also at night, I'll always do my routine, checking my locks, making sure that I have some sort of protection. And then always, I make sure that I'm parked in locations where I have signal. I always share my location. I have an iPhone and they have this feature called Find My Friends, which is great for anyone who has an iPhone. I recommend doing this. You can share your location indefinitely with your friends, family, partner, or somebody who is going to be there for you. They can see your live location at all times as long as, your phone is on. And even if it's off with the newer iPhones, now there's that 5G setting that can use satellite to track you, which is amazing for safety. So just making sure that you carry tools. I actually feel less safe in cities because there are things like a lot of homeless people, a lot of intoxicated individuals. So just being really mindful and really cautious with your choices there as an extra safety precaution. I would recommend to get there before the stores close and go inside and talk to the manager and just getting permission from them. It can also protect you from situations where you have law enforcement or someone come by because you've already asked for that permission. I remember when I first started my van life and I was driving across the country from Florida back to California, I was halfway home, maybe 4 hours from my home base at the time where I was gonna get my stuff and put them in my van. I stopped at this Walmart overnight, and this was when I was first starting, so I didn't really know about asking for permission or checking for signs that you could even park there. I parked near the back, so I was like trying to be stealthy, not trying to draw too much attention to the fact that I was in a van by myself, still learning how to do it, you know? I have this ladder on the back of my van. It sends me up to the roof rack. I was getting ready for bed, everything was dark. Then I started to hear something scratching onto the back ladder, and I got so freaked out. I was like, oh my God. If you know California, if you know LA, there are a lot of homeless people. This area that I parked at, the Walmart, wasn't necessarily a super sketchy area, but Walmarts can sometimes feel a little bit shady. I was like, oh man, it's already starting. I'm already gonna have to deal with something like this. I got terrified holding my covers so close to me, but then I was like, I can't let this happen to me. This is my first experience, like they're trying to break in. So then I got up. I have a window in the back side of my van. I have 2 windows on each door. I started to peek through them, trying to see, like, is it a person? What is it? I didn't see anyone. As soon as I opened the window, I went and I laid back down, then I heard it again. And so this time I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have my phone ready to call 911 and open the window big so that they would see me and maybe I could scare them. And then from the little porthole window that I have on the side, I saw a cat scurrying away. So it was a cat. A cat was climbing my ladder, but it terrified me so much. And it made me realize how vulnerable I am as a person in a vehicle by myself. It really made me think on my feet. And that was like my first couple of weeks of introduction to van life, you know? Like, so I think ever since then, I kind of had it in my head, okay, you need to have this safety plan for yourself. Because even though it was just a cat this time, it could happen at any other time. People are curious. They're going to come by. They're going to see what's up. And if you have things like a ladder or interesting things around your vehicle, theft exists. People break into cars all the time. So trying to make yourself look as unappealing as possible to the outside world, or placing yourself in places where the community just doesn't feel like it's one of scarcity, is important. Next things to think about if you're going into van life alone are how you're going to get money and how you're going to work and how you're going to sustain yourself. So I think this is the biggest blocker for most people, right? In the world that we live in now, it takes a lot of money to survive, right? You know, there's inflation, the economy, there's things going on that really have an impact on how we spend our money and where our money goes. So really thinking about what kind of work you can do while living this lifestyle. I know a lot of van influencers rely on their social media content or want to make it big for that reason because they want that source of income. Realistically, that takes a lot of work. If it's not something you're particularly skilled at, I would stick with finding things that you can share your skills on. For example, I was a tech project manager, so I handled digital projects for the company I worked for, and I was lucky enough to have it be fully remote. I worked daily with a flexible remote schedule, making sure that I did what I needed to do. For you, that might look like finding skills in the types of things that you're interested in and building a foundation off that. I know there are lots of websites that support remote work or contract work, like Fiverr, but really thinking about that as you are going into this process, that's the main blocker for most people. I remember people would always ask me, how do you travel all the time? Do you even work? Yes, I do. And it's what is called digital nomad life for most people now. I think that's becoming more common, but that doesn't have to stop you. If you're someone who doesn't necessarily have a lot of technical skills, you could also do things like what I had a couple of other friends do, work seasonally. They would take these jobs and work for like 2 or 3 months at a time and then spend the rest of their time traveling and then go back to another seasonal job and then travel again. And so really just exploring what you have to offer. You could also do work exchange if you have skills like teaching yoga or playing an instrument. Maybe you volunteer at a place in exchange for staying there or in exchange for parking there. There are also things like house sitting opportunities or farm exchange opportunities where you can go to these places and stay there if you take care of the land or take care of their home or watch their pets. Pet sitting is an option too. Think about that as you go into it. Really explore all of your opportunities. There are so many ways to make money nowadays, and if you build up your skills, you can find opportunities that probably pay a lot more, but there are ways to make it on a budget. The sustainability of living in a van can be more affordable. However, you still need to budget. You need to have a plan for how you're going to spend your money on food, expenses for your vehicle, like gas or maintenance, or if you're planning a longer travel trip, like how much that's going to cost and how long that's going to take. So definitely don't forget, budgeting is still going to be a part of it. And if you're a digital nomad, like definitely think about things like where you're going to get your internet. I made a whole video on my work setup. If you check that out, that is a really good resource for finding places to work as a digital nomad. When I first started, I spent a lot of money buying my van. My engine blew out, and so I had to replace it. So literally all of my money went into my vehicle, and it really made me question, why am I doing this? This is a mess. I was feeling so much regret and so much fear, and it all worked out. I made the money back up. I saved even more. I lived debt-free for years after that because of the lifestyle I was also living and the amount of work that I was doing. But yeah, in the beginning, I started it off just spending all of my money on it and just kind of praying to the winds, like saying, okay, I hope this works out. But I was feeling a lot of fear around the money and the work and the sustainability aspect of it all. Know that if it's something you want and something you keep working towards, it's gonna work out no matter what. It'll come back to you. Another thing that you should think about if you're going to be starting the van life alone is thinking about the lonely moments and how to stay grounded through those moments. Naturally, being alone, it's going to stir up those emotions. You're going to have the fear, the FOMO of not being around family and friends, but you're also going to be creating new community and having new experiences. It'll be a roller coaster of emotions. Learning how to ground yourself through those emotional moments is probably one of the most important things you'll need to do for yourself. For me, for example, I used a lot of tools like my meditation practices, my journaling practices, calling my friends and family for support when I needed it, spending a lot of time in nature. My movement practice was super important to me. It's like getting out of my head when I'm experiencing those feelings of loneliness or sadness and into my body and just moving that energy. Letting myself feel those feelings is really important too. I remember a lot of times when I was feeling very heavy, I'd just be driving and I'd start to feel something and I'd cry for a good 20 minutes. Then I'd turn on the radio and start singing, and that's completely healthy and okay. Like, that's gonna happen anywhere, anytime. It could happen. We're just human beings and we're programmed to feel. So I encourage you to explore those feelings. Van life was one of the most spiritual practices that I've ever had because it allowed me to tap into all of my deepest desires while also learning how to be by myself and chasing the things that I wanted for myself. I didn't do it for anybody else, right? If I did it for anybody else, I probably wouldn't have done it because everybody told me I was crazy for wanting that. It is a moment of like fully trusting yourself to be and trusting yourself to follow that voice that tells you you want this or you need this or this is for you. And like, especially as a woman, we also naturally deal with so many fluctuating hormones throughout our cycle, throughout our experience, and that's gonna naturally make us more susceptible to these emotional waves and patterns. But recognizing your power and your ability to stay grounded through that and your ability to feel those feelings and then release them, super powerful, super good. Through this experience, you'll meet parts of yourself that you didn't know were there before, and I think it's a really moving opportunity for anyone who wants to go through this journey. If you have been dreaming about this experience and you've been planning it out for so long, then this is your sign. Just go, just do it. just commit to it on some level and recognize that life is short. Recognize that you are the creator of your experience. So if that's what you want, do it. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you for watching this video, and if you want to support me, like and subscribe. Leave a comment if any of this resonated with you, if you have started van life, or if you are on the verge of starting, or if it's something you've dreamed about doing. Let me know. What are your biggest fears? What are the biggest things stopping you from reaching that goal? And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.